Check one, two. Check one, two. Test one. Test three. Test five. Test seven. Test nine. Test nine. Test 11.
All right, good evening, everybody. We'd like to call the meeting to order with a pledge of allegiance. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our May meeting. We'll start the meeting with a vote on the past meeting minutes from the April 9th and the April 16th meetings respectively. This will be via unanimous vote. Any questions or conversations on the meeting minutes? Okay, Christine will approve unanimous vote. We'll then now hand it over to Mr. Sullivan for a special presentation.
Test. Got me? Thank you, Mr. Owen. It's my privilege to be here tonight. We have a lot of outstanding student athletes here at Athens School District, but we have some that require special recognition tonight. I'd like to start by welcoming down Sarah Bronson and Graham Wank, please. Sarah and Graham, they both qualified for the state cross-country meet this year in Hershey, which is an incredible honor. At the district meet in Bloomsburg, Sarah finished in 8th place with a time of 16 minutes and 53 seconds. And Graham finished in 13th place with a time of 19 minutes and 40, or I'm sorry, reverse that. Graham was 16 minutes and 53 seconds and Sarah was 19 minutes and 44 seconds. But they both, I'm sure they'll do it next year. But anyway, Graham is only a freshman. Sarah is a junior. They're both outstanding students. They're also involved in track and field. Sarah just recently broke our school record, her sister's record, in the 1600 meters. Time of 5 minutes, 23 seconds. And Graham ran the 2 mile at Wyalusing in 10 minutes, 1 second, something like that. So they both did an outstanding job in cross country, making it to states. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if they make it to Shippensburg for the state track and field championships. So congratulations to you too. Another fall athlete that deserves recognition is actually playing in a golf league today, which should surprise no one, but is Evan Cooper. Outstanding golfer. It was his second year qualifying for the state championships at Penn State. He finished second in the district. He was actually in a tie with another Athens player, Eli Hicks, and Evan, in a very hard situation for the two kids, won the playoff and advanced to the state tournament. Our team finished second place to Jersey Shore just by a couple strokes in the team championships. And we had a phenomenal season, going undefeated in the NTL play. Evan is also an excellent student. He was just in our top 10 banquet the other day. He's going to Virginia Wesleyan to study chemistry, and he is a great representative of our school and our district. So congratulations to Evan. Now, last but certainly not least, ladies, please come out here, right here, line up. Now, this is a very special team that we have here at Athens. This is our girls wrestling team, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves first, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about them. Please, Emma, you start, say your name and your grade. And in addition, Coach Jay White and Coach David White are both here as well. These girls are the first ever District 4 champions for girls wrestling, which is an amazing accomplishment. I want to commend the board. When we formed this team 2 years ago, thanks a great deal to Coach White and Coach White, we were maybe the 25th team in the entire state to form a girls wrestling team. Now it is, obviously it's taken off since then. This year in Hershey, girls were wrestling with the boys. It was an unbelievable event to go there, as far as at the same time, and Matt in the center mats in the Giant Center. Some of the individual accomplishments, besides being the team champs at districts, Mary Henry and Emma Reniger were both third place finishers. Hannah Rathbun was a second place finisher and a state qualifier. Leah Nason, Abby Wagner, and Ashlyn Van Fleet were all district champions. All four of the girls that I said that went to states, they were all, they were within one match of medaling at states. So As you heard, a lot of these girls are underclassmen. They have excellent teamwork and they represent our school in a wonderful way. And we're certainly very proud of them. So thank you to everyone for letting them be recognized tonight. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Yes, and great job. Thank you to all the student athletes. All right, next, the board's going to break for a brief executive session to discuss personnel matters. We'll be back momentarily. All right, we're back. So let's move on to item number 3 on the agenda. Ms. Shores is going to give us a presentation on the proposed preliminary budget for the 2024-2025 school year. Ms. Shores.
Sorry, I'm just waiting for it to get up on the screen. I guess you guys have it all in front of you. I can start. So the first slide is just our timeline. May 7th, which is today, we will approve the preliminary budget. A copy will be available for anybody in the community that wishes to view it here in our office. June 11th is the next board meeting. That will be when we approve the final budget. Yep. To give you a little bit of background information, our real estate tax history for the last couple of years, we were very conservative during COVID because we had all of the ESSER funds. So we did not, or we raised taxes very little over the last couple of years. Here's what, if we were to raise taxes to go to the index, we would be able to generate $1.1 million in revenue. How does it affect the homeowner? I did a proposal of 1.5 mil and a 2 mil. So I just had Mrs. Middlecamp help me, our tax person, to just pick some houses in the area, tier them up of their assessed value. And you can see that it ranges for $46. It'll raise their taxes up to $204 if we went to a 2 mil increase. Here's just some information on our general fund balance. PDE suggests at least an 8% of our overall budget to be reserve money. So you can see that we are well over the 8% right now. A little bit about where our revenue comes from. 40% comes from local taxes. 54 comes from state, which is our reimbursements for PSERS, our Social Security, reimbursement for transportation, a few grants, and then our regular and special education state funding. And then the last little bit comes from federal, which is just title funds and medical access. So I have it included in this presentation, a 1.5 mil increase to local, an increase of almost 1.2 million from basic ed funding, 1.5. So there was a one-time medical access revenue that we were able to pull from our MA account, which has not been pulled from since before I was a business manager. So this is only a one-time deal to clear the account out. And then every year going forward will be revenue versus expense on the budget, and you won't notice it. And then we have just a reminder, we have no ESSER funding available. The salaries and benefits, the benefits is the easy part. It's just a straight 6% increase in health insurance and almost a 34% in PSERS contribution were the two biggest pieces. The salaries, we decreased some in Act 93. We eliminated the technology department by outsourcing. We eliminated through attrition an SRU classroom teacher and the part-time or half-time Harlan Rowe and the high school computer science teacher. We also created a full-time permanent learning support teacher at SRU and then a 1-year learning support teacher at Lynch. We created a emotional support classroom at Lynch. So it's the teachers along with 2 aides to be in that classroom. And we are hiring a behavioral support aide at Lynch and SRU this year. You guys will see some of that on the personnel to approve tonight. We did approve, I think, the ES teacher last month. And I forgot the aides last month, and it was just brought to my attention today. So you will see the aides for the ES classroom in June. The remaining expenses, just a couple of notes on the increases. The increase in professional and tech services is the Quest technology services that we're outsourcing. So it kind of offset our salaries to those services. We have increased charter school tuition based on where our numbers are today, projecting for next year, if we keep that same enrollment, that goes up quite a bit. And we approved the CKLA curriculum that Mr. Takama talked about. This just breaks it down so you can see where all of the money goes. You can see it's very clear that it's salary and benefits. This just kind of shows you, if you're unfamiliar, of what is broken down into the next sections: instructional, which are our normal regular ed, special ed, vocational, driver's ed, that type of thing. Support is everything behind the scenes: the health, the speech, the PT, the nurses, the guidance. Non-instructional are student activity and athletics. There's very little in facilities, and then our debt. This just shows over the last couple of years where we've been. You can see that our instruction, we are putting more money into instruction, a little bit more into support services, very little into the rest of them. And then where we stand. So right now, with a 1.5 increase in mills, it'll be a $621,000 deficit. We did talk a little bit in executive session about raising it to the 2 mil increase. We have a lot of things coming up in the next year with contract negotiations, health insurance always rising. So we, as a board, decided to go with a 2 mil increase, and that would get our deficit down to 480,000. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shores. Okay, next we'll move on to committee reports, starting with finance and operations.
Finance and operations. So it was brought to our attention that we have a lot of items that are going to be going out to bid for auctions, trying to clean up some of the things in the district that are no longer needed. I think Jeff's done a good job at trying to keep everything we have in par. We also have a start date for the gym. I believe it's the 28th of May. There's going to be a 2-week lead time on that, but that's exciting. We're hoping to see this take off. So, and that would be it for finance and operations.
Thank you. Next, personnel and policy.
We have a number of policies going to second read. We also reviewed a number of first read policies this evening. These are just updates to existing policies. They're not even updates. We were just reviewing them. We'd like to move most of those first reads to second read tonight, just to vote on them, because we're really not suggesting any changes. We did have one change on the personnel files policy. All we made and we still recommend this goes to second read tonight, but we just there's a list of all the types of documents that are kept in those files. Because this document hasn't been updated since 2011, we just asked for an additional sort of any other miscellaneous documents as required by the district to make sure that was included there, just to give some clarity there. The one policy that we did look at tonight that we would like to keep as a first read and have the rest of the board review is the district social media policy. This is a new policy that's come from PSBA, I believe. There were a number of selections that we had to make on this. It's a very straightforward policy. We've given all the changes, or we'll give all the changes to you, Christine, and encourage everyone to look at it. One of the things I want to call out on the district social media policy, we've had some discussions over the last few months about, do we need an additional social media policy, or what does that look like? This new policy actually has language in it that talks about personal use of social media and how that relates to district media. It's really concise. It gives very sort of clear guidance around this. So encourage everyone to look at it. We would recommend we don't bring in or create another policy if we adopt this one, but this should cover it and I think meet all the needs that we've discussed as a board. But really encourage everyone to look at that one when it goes to second read. And yeah, I think that's it. Anything else, Kathy Jo? No. Okay.
Thank you. Curriculum instruction technology, Mr. Jones.
We didn't have too much. The high school ATSI plan update. So that is the additional targeted support and improvement plan. But they're still on that. It's due to special education not meeting some achievement targets. So that will continue. We had a hiring update from Mr. Toscano, and he said they were pleasantly surprised. They had 5 open jobs for, this was for a special education, and they had 13 candidates, and some really, really good candidates. I think last year, Mr. Toscano had said that they had 3 openings, but only 3 candidates. So this is, they're really happy to have those interviews, and they'll be going out to second round. And then the last was just the curriculum position transition. Unfortunately, with John leaving, Ms. Rhodes has been working with him, and that is all going well with taking over that transition. And that's it.
Thank you. And next we'll move on to extracurricular activities. Is that Joe or is Kevin? Okay, so no updates tonight then? Okay, so no updates in section on that one, okay? So we'll move on to section 5 then, superintendent's items and reports. Dr. Stage, anything to report tonight?
Yeah, I just have a couple brief things. This week is Teacher Appreciation Week, and it'd be foolish of me not to recognize our teachers. It's an incredible task to be an educator in today's world, because what they do is not just educating. There are so many things that happen in a classroom and outside of a classroom that our teachers take care of that are not just teaching and learning. And they do that sometimes on the sacrifice of their own time and resources and their own mental health. And I express my sincere gratitude for all of our teachers. 1 week is certainly not enough to celebrate them. It should be all year long. Secondly, I'd like to thank Ms. Shores putting our budget together for next year. It's been a lot of closed door sessions. We can't knock on her door. We can't bother her, but she works very, very hard. And the most nerve-wracking part is not building the budget and having the conversations. It's standing in front of this board and giving that presentation every year. It's nerve-wracking, and she did a very admirable job tonight. So thank you to Jenny. And honestly, the last thing I want to say is I wish our middle school science Olympiad team the best of luck. In 2.5 weeks, they're going to be heading out to Michigan State, East Lansing, and competing in nationals. They are excited. I'm sure they're nervous, and I can't wait to bring them in June and celebrate them. But they're headed to nationals, and they are definitely going to put the Wildcats on the map. So appreciate them and wish them the best of luck. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stage. So next we have nobody representing Blast IU. So we'll move on to the Career Center. Mrs. Cooper.
Thank you very much. Our last meeting at the Career Center, we went over kind of end of year things. They currently have for the 2025 school year, 528 enrolled. They have a waiting list. They had their NOCTA exams recently, which is kind of like their finals, and they had 100% attendance. And there was 4 left to go. They had 100% passing on everything that they did, which is pretty incredible. The place is great. They had 5 people compete at their Skills USA, which is down in, I believe, Williamsport. And we ended up with a 2nd place in cooperative education and a 3rd place in the building category coming out of NTCC. And they're going to have their end of year awards on Thursday, May 23rd at Towanda High School Auditorium. Anyone is welcome. 9:30 a.m. is the morning session, and Athens is in the morning session for Northern Tier Career Center. 1 o'clock for the afternoon if you happen to have someone in Towanda or somewhere else that attends in the afternoon. And the CNA program, the adult education program, Guthrie had funded 25 seats, and they're all full. So.
Thank you, Mrs. Cooper. Next, PSBA, Mrs. Minnick.
Thank you. Just want to bring attention to the board and also the taxpayers in the district. There is a bill currently in Pennsylvania legislature that could change how cyber charter schools are funded. And this will be putting millions back into the public school system. House Bill 1422 is a cyber charter funding reform bill. This passed the State House last July, but it has been sitting in the Senate Education Committee since then. House Bill 1422 would set a single statewide $8,000 tuition rate for non-special education students for all cyber charter schools. This bill would also require transparency in advertising expenses, cap cyber charters unassigned fund balances, require student wellness checks, and prohibit the use of taxpayer dollars to fund field trips or enrollment incentives. Charter schools are independently run, but taxpayer funded through the public schools. Cyber charter schools don't operate under the same financial pressures that the public schools have. The public schools have increased maintenance and building costs as well as transportation costs. Although this bill will not limit the cyber options for students. It just forces the cyber schools to be more conservative with their spending, like we have to be in the public school system. Like I said, this bill is currently stuck in the Senate Education Committee. I urge you to contact our local state senator, Gene Yaw, 570-322-6457, and urge him to get this bill moving, get this bill passed. Without the public support for charter reforms, nothing's going to happen. When the public gets involved, that's when there'll be a difference made. So please reach out, call Senator Yaw's office. Again, it's 570-322-6457 and tell them to get this bill pushed through. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minnick. Very helpful. Next, we'll move on to solicitors' items and reports. Mr. Barrett.
I just have a couple of general announcements that we have a personnel matter and some litigation which is moving forward, and we hope we can wrap them up in the next month or so. Thank you.
Thank you. So next section is visitor comments on board action items only. Do we have any visitor comments tonight on board action items? Okay, so next we'll move on to section 8, which is the approval of the proposed preliminary budget that Ms. Shores presented earlier. Do we have a motion and a second to bring this up for vote?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. So this is basically voting on what Ms. Shores just presented earlier, which will then put the proposed budget into the public review for the next 30 days, at which we will then do the next vote at this meeting in June to make it official. So we're basically just voting on taking what's proposed here and making it available to the public after today's meeting.
Is that going to be updated to show the
To
2
show
mil?
the two, yes, correct. Ms.
Okay,
Shores, right?
so
So
that'll all be-
reflect the, to say the 2 mil and then the reflect the deficit, change the result of that. Correct. Any other questions or conversation from the board?
No.
Hey, Christine.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
and Mrs. Smart.
Yes.
Okay, next, do we have a motion and a second to elect the treasurer?
So moved.
Second.
Do we have any nominations for the treasurer position?
I nominate Mrs. Smart.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further nominations? Okay, Christine?
Mr. Frisbee,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mrs. Smart,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next, do we have a motion and a second to appoint the district solicitor?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Would anyone like to make a nomination for district solicitor?
Attorney Patrick Barrett.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further nominations? Okay, Christine?
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick,
No.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mrs. Smart,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
and Mr. Frisbee.
Yes. Thank you. So next we'll move on to our financial business. So we have our typical financial business, the listing of the bills, the general fund checks, cafeteria bills, our income tax report, our secretary and treasurer report, as well as our middle school student activity report. We also have a couple other items on the list this month, which is to authorize the secretary, the treasurer, the president to sign all the general fund checks. Again, so we do this time every year. That's letter G. Letter H is to designate the CNN Bank as the bank for the school district. I is the renewal of the secretary and treasurer bonds. J is just the request to pay routine bills over the summer. And then K is the request to begin a physical therapy services memo that we approved last month, but this is, I think, the approval to start that a little bit sooner. So, Mr. Stage, anything else you want to add to any of those items?
No, just, I just want to bumper on to the request to begin physical therapy services. We have some needs to get some students in physical therapy. With Endless Mountain Therapy, they were available to start earlier. That's why the memo is, and it's simply to provide those services. We don't have anybody to do it. So, and of course, the routine bills. Just to keep ourselves from being overdue.
And also, I'm sorry, do we have I went through all that without asking for the motion and a second to bring that to the table. Do we have a motion and a second to bring financial business to the table?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so now I'll just reiterate everything I just said, that I should have said before that. So any questions or conversation on the financial business? Okay, sounds like we're good. Christine?
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mrs. Smart,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee,
Yes.
and Mr. Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, next personnel. Do we have a motion and a second to bring personnel to the table?
So moved.
Second.
So we have our personnel list, which is quite lengthy this month that everybody has in front of them. So various eliminations and creation of positions across the Act 93, professional and so on, and as well as several supplemental contracts and athletic contracts. So not going to go through all of them because there are a lot on the list this month. And then we also have the school psychologist, behavioral intervention specialist memo for the summer. Any questions or conversations from the board on anything in the personnel section? Okay, Christine?
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mrs. Smart,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
and Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Dr. Sage, anything you'd like to say on the personnel items?
On the personnel listing, the request for additional days for school psychologists, that is so that we stay compliant with all of our evaluations throughout the summer.
Anything with regards to any of the new positions or new hires that are
Yes,
coming?
actually, I want to take a moment and recognize a few people that are here tonight. So we have Mrs. Hillman back there is our new elementary principal at Lynch Buston Elementary. Can you stand up so they can all see you and meet you? There she is. Yay. I'm so focused on the next section. And we have some of some people we're familiar with, but moving into some new roles. We have Jamie McNeil, who will now be the assistant principal at the high school. Mr. McNeil. And we have Mr. Matt Patton. Mr. Matt Patton will be the assistant principal at Harlan Row. You know, I do want to say it was a great interview process for all of us, for all these positions. We're very excited for Mrs. Hillman to join us. She's coming from Corning Painted Post School District. I think she's going to be exciting, and I think everybody's going to enjoy her energy. And I'm very thankful to see some of our current staff moving into administrative positions, which has really been a target and a goal for me. So thank you to Mr. McNeil and Mr. Patton. I wish them luck, and I can't wait to see what you guys can do. So best of luck, and you got your one round of applause. So enjoy it. Just kidding. Hopefully many more. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Stage. Thank you. All right, so next, contracts and agreements. Do we have a motion and a second to bring that up for discussion and vote?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
So we have 4 items here in this section: the PDE sponsor to sponsor agreement for Head Start, Northern Tier Counseling, clinical education affiliation agreement for that athletic trainer intern, and then the mentor recommendation for some of our new administrators. Dr. Stage, anything you want to add on any of those items?
Yeah, just to note, the sponsorship agreement with Bradford Tioga Head Start, that has been a successful sponsorship for about 8.5 years now. It brings both pre-K and Head Start into our buildings, and we're very thankful to have that partnership. Northern Tier Counseling, great partner for partial hospitalization. It keeps us having another outlet for our students who have some needs. We're excited to welcome an athletic trainer intern. This agreement allows us to do that. They'll be working with Mr. Hicks and some other people from Guthrie as well. And finally, just looking to add some mentorship. Everybody needs a mentor. And with this mentor has been a veteran principal for over 20+ years. And he's an outside resource for both Mr. McNeil and Mr. Gabriel, and helping them navigate new waters for them as they move into new positions next year. So very important. And that's it.
Where is he a principal?
Mr. Sotolano is the principal of Count Esky Valley High School and has been since 1990. I would say 2001 or before. It's been a long time. I apologize. He might be the most senior principal in all of the Northern. And I think some of these people know him pretty well. They've worked with him. So, yeah.
Any further questions from the board on those items? Okay, vote. Christine?
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mrs. Smrek,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
and Mrs. Minnick.
Yes.
Okay, next, policies. Do we have a motion and a second for policies?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so I think per the committee update earlier, so A through I were originally second read, keeping those second read as listed. J through P, moving those from first read to second read. And then keeping Q at second, correct? Okay. So we're voting, basically going to be voting A through P for second read and then voting on Q as a first read.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions on those policies? Okay, vote Christine.
Mrs. Smrek,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
and Mr. Owen.
Yes. Okay, next, do we have a motion and a second for curriculum and instruction?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a couple field trip requests, one for the Science Olympiad that Dr. Stage mentioned earlier. We also have an overnight field trip for FFA. And then the last 3 are approving the handbooks for the high school, the middle school, and both elementary schools. Any questions or conversations or Dr. anything like to add on any of
The
those?
only thing I'd like to add, the overnight field trips are required whenever there's an overnight field trip, but the handbooks, thankfully you guys approved the personnel listing. We basically updated some names for new staff. There's some language updates that you'll see. The high schools are pretty well highlighted with the changes, and the middle school added the athletic code of conduct to match the high schools. Other than that, I think the elementary updated their educational field trip part section just to match what our protocols and policy is. It didn't quite line up. So just some simple changes for you guys. And we kind of do this annually, so anticipate some revisions next year.
Thank you, Dr. Sage. Any further questions from the board? Okay, vote, Christine.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Frisbee,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
and Mrs. Smart.
Yes.
Okay, next, do we have a motion and a second for transportation?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a updated driver list. Looks like we've got three added drivers, one substitute. I'm sorry, two substitutes, one
Driver.
one main driver. So any questions on the driver listing? Okay, Christine, for vote.
Mr. Frisbee,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mrs. Minnick,
Yes.
Mr. Owen,
Yes.
Mrs. Smart,
Yes.
and Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Okay, so we have nothing for building and grounds tonight. We have nothing in the other section of the agenda this evening either. So that brings us to the second visitor comments. Do we have any other visitor comments this evening? Okay, so the latter part of the agenda are several board communication items that are for awareness that do not require.
Yeah, I do want to make one note. If you look at the field trip report, fourth or fifth from the bottom, you'll see exceptional athlete day with a cost of $1,349. That is incorrect. It's actually supposed to be moved up. That is actually for the life skills students to travel to Knoebels, and a significant portion of that money, the life skills students raise on their own through their school store and things like that. So I just wanted to make the note of the change. It's actually like $0 for except.
Oh, I get, okay, so we're the blanket, but again, this,
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Yep.
it's just the cost was.
Right.
Offset.
I give a lot of credit to Mrs. DeLosa. She's kept it going when we were no longer able to partner with Bradford County or Special Olympics to continue going. We are still having Valley Exceptional Athlete Day, and we still invite local schools to come and have a great time. So it's a great day.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sage. So then we also have just some other personal transfers, Sunday facility use request, and then some enrollment data. And any questions from the board on any of those items? Okay, so next section, do we have any board discussion items? Okay, then our next meeting will be June 11th. So we'll also just be doing one meeting in the month of June. That'll be 7 o'clock here with committees meeting at 6:15. We do not have a need for executive session since we had one earlier. So do we have a motion and a second to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you all.